Good afternoon, Jasmine.
Good afternoon, Roberto. Thanks for having me.
Always, always, always. It's good to catch up with an old friend from our shoulder to shoulder battles for school funding. We both tangled with then Governor Cuomo with the formulas, with the reporting, and those were interesting days. So it's good to also see you in your new role as co-executive director of the Working Families Party, and also to sort of the revival. And I wouldn't say, look, let me not minimize the work of the party, but now it's on an upswing, right? After years of attacks, and that's not obviously through no fault of the party. It was just the wave of right former governor being a part of the issue. But either way, let's move on. How have the last couple of days been for you?
Uh Exciting. The WFP, like you said, we're on an upswing. We came off of major victory. We made some big bets this year. In the New York City mayoral, supporting Zohran Mamdani as our #1 endorsed candidate and elevating a rank the slate strategy, and leveraging ranked choice voting in the New York City Democratic primary. Widely successful, so happy about that, while also electing WP endorsed executives across the state in Albany with Dorcia Players, with Sharon Owens in Syracuse, and with Sean Ryan in Buffalo. And so WFP is feeling strong, and really mobilizing our people to say that organized people can beat back the billionaires, and that's what we did on Tuesday.
So I remember having a conversation with your co-executive director Anna Maria couple of months back, and she was very she went into the whole how the this time around they wanted to make sure that the ranked choice system didn't leave out the left, the progressives, right? Because she felt that the last time around there wasn't a unified sort of progressive wing, which led to the election of current Mayor Adams. And I saw early on you all rolled out or had the walkthrough to City Hall with the candidates, and then it's been written time and time again that Comptroller Lander and the cross endorsement with the nominee was extremely impactful in the outcome. So it worked this time around. How did you manage to get all these personalities together and to agree? Because personally, from the outside looking in, right, just objective, or trying to be, impartial, I was watching it and I was like, that's good. That's a pretty tall order because there was a lot of people even at the end that I thought really didn't have a shot at winning. And I'm like, could this vote splitting lead to, the outcome that they don't want? So how did you manage to do that?
Yeah, it was a lot of hard work on our side, that started early, right? Like we started a year ago in a room with presumed candidates, before a lot of people even announced that they were running. And we're like, hey, it's rumored that y'all are going to run for mayor. We should all talk. And we had them all in a room together. And we were like, let's figure this out together. And we looked at the results. We were like, listen, the biggest problem we had the last time was our side was divided. And when we're divided, it makes room for a more right-winging candidate to come in. And so how do we run as a slate? How do we learn from ranked choice voting from other cities? We talked to folks in California and San Francisco specifically, how they use ranked choice voting. We showed them a commercial with two mayoral candidates cross-endorsing each other. We talked to our friends in Australia who have ranked choice voting, who also said, they run as a slate, and so, and every time we were learning about ranked choice voting, we shared it with the then not even candidates yet. And then we kept talking to them and we kept convening them and we kept talking. We socialized this strategy with affiliates, with community groups, with elected officials, with the donor class. And we're like, listen, this is how we're going to run and win together. We're going to keep our side united. We're going to leverage ranked choice voting. We're going to stay rank the slate. We're not going to attack each other. We're going to attack the candidates of the billionaires, which was Eric Adams at the time, and then became Andrew Cuomo. And so we worked really hard to keep our side united. And we had hiccups along the way, but ultimately, the candidates were disciplined. And they all kind of went around and saying, vote for me, rank the slate, and don't rank Andrew Cuomo. And every candidate was echoing that. And we saw candidates, even in the end. leverage their resources for the greater good. And so, Zelnor Myrie, the final days of the election, spending his money on ads against Cuomo was essential.
Jasmine, who was in the room? Now that it's over and done with, talk about who was in the room when you were having those discussions early on.
It was basically the candidates on our slate, minus Adrienne Adams, because she hadn't committed to running yet. She was the only one who really was in that room, and there were a few others who didn't run, who were in that room. And it was a small, tight room that like met in a really a private location. And we met multiple times, never leaked it to the media that we were talking, that they were maybe considering running for mayor. We allow people to develop their campaigns. They shared amongst each other as the campaigns, developed, when they were going to announce and when they were going to launch. And so it took a lot of organizing. Like, people were like, oh, this just happened. And like, it didn't just happen. The Working Families Party was actively organizing to get to this outcome, to make this win possible. And had our side been divided, this wouldn't have been happen. This wouldn't have been possible. Had the cross endorsement not happened, this wouldn't have been possible. And so all of the work that started a year ago led to the ability for Zohran to take advantage of this moment and meet his fullest potential and get the outcomes we had on Tuesday.
So, Jasmine, it was rumored that Governor Cuomo, there were polls being put out. Eventually, he announces he's running for mayor, and I remember you all immediately began to protest and picket and sort of
Of course.
define him. Was there now talk about that because even as I was watching the race from the outside, I kept saying nothing seems to be sticking, right? Talk about that and the strategy once he officially declares, right? And poll after poll after poll shows that it's inevitable that he's going to win. Come to find out, the polling was way off, right? Uh, Great work if you can get it, but that's another story for another time. But what was that like? Think about, were you discouraged at any point, considering it's like, oh Lord, this is
I
like
think the
the IE raising an exorbitant amount of money,
the
all the
most money ever
institutions,
spent.
yes, all the institutions lining up, all the electeds who once called for him to step down are now on the bandwagon. Talk about that and how did you all manage to sort of stay in the game, right? In terms of even the morale.
Yeah, honestly, the thing that kept us motivated, that we knew we had a chance to defeat Cuomo, was that at the end of the day, Cuomo was running on name recognition. And he has nearly 100% name recognition in New York City. Everyone knows him. He's been governor for a number of years. His father was governor. The Cuomo has been on the ballot multiple times for New Yorkers. And we knew he had huge name recognition. And even with 100% name recognition, in every poll never showed him getting at 50% in round one. And what the polls also showed was that there were a big swath of voters, his negatives were high. And that at the end of the day, there were like 45% of voters who were like, I will never vote for Andrew Cuomo. And like that, he was not their candidate. And so we knew the electorate was looking for an alternative, and Cuomo was simply operating off of name recognition. And at first, we had to be patient. Like, we were coming off the November election. I was like, I don't think New Yorkers are really ready to pay attention to a new election right now. They're not paying attention. And so we're like, the polls are not in our favor. They're not getting to know the other candidates. They don't know who else is running. They only know Andrew Cuomo's name. We have to keep reminding them of the Cuomo negatives, and we have to promote the names of our endorsed candidates. And we just had to be relentless about that. And like, at the end of the day, we knew New Yorkers were looking for an alternative, and the reminder that we didn't have to replace one scandal-ridden mayor with another scandal-ridden politician. So it was disappointing to see people, who had, disliked Cuomo, who knew how awful he was and knew how dangerous he was, feel like they were, endorse him. But at the same time, we remain committed to we have to defeat Andrew Cuomo. And partly it's like the survival of the party. We know how vindictive he is. And we knew if he was elected and was back in power, he would come for Tish James and the Working Families Party in that order, right? Like that's the kind of person he is. And we knew we had to defeat we knew we had to defeat him. And like, it felt impossible. It was a David and Goliath situation. And I remember saying to our staff, but like, David did defeat Goliath. And so we're going to keep trying and do our best to the very end.
Jasmine, now talk about what it's been like since now yesterday we found out that it wasn't even close. I mean, it was really bad. Meaning, they made the right decision just calling Zoran and saying, "Hey, congratulations, you won." And now, when some of the additional votes came out, it turns out that he beat him handily. Again, despite what the pollster said, and a lot of them, right? But separate of that, talk about what it's been post uh, the Zoran nomination and that victory in the Democratic lane, and what it's been like for Jasmine Gripper and the Working Families Party. Are people blowing up your phone, or
I feel like
what's the
we
old
feel like
expression?
we've been
No new
working
friends, no new
nonstop.
friends. You have a lot of friends now.
Not even, that's not our attitude. Listen, we want to build the biggest
No,
tent
I'm kidding. I'm
possible. We
kidding.
want a
I'm
broad
kidding.
coalition of support for Zoran. We got work to do. We take no vote for granted. We take no neighborhood for granted. We are like still running. We even regardless, we don't think like Andrew Cuomo was embarrassed on election day, but we know what we need to secure support for Zoran. We need the Democratic Party not to be self-sabotaging here. We need to make sure he's fully successful in November. That, it was great to see labor surround him and come out and support for Zoran today. But there's work to do. He has to make inroads in communities that didn't know him, that went for Cuomo, and he needs to still make inroads into new voters. So that's going to be our work, is to actually continue to have a strong showing for Zoran, even as we get to the general election in November, and we don't take anything for granted. And so it's been busy. Planning, plotting, and making sure that our people know what to do next. But also, like last night, we took a moment to celebrate. We invited our volunteers out, and we just to say thank you, because on election day, our people were out in 100-degree weather all day long, scattered across the city, and we never really convened in one spot. And so it was great to see WFP volunteers, to hear their stories about how they were outside for GOTV on election day at poll sites, and how much energy and time they gave to making this strategy successful.
Has the funding come in strong? Meaning, these things, now that he's the nominee, what has the funding been like? I know that some of Labor's coalescing around him, and elections take money, as we've seen with TV ads, et cetera, et cetera. Have people started to open their sort of their wallets and start
We're we're
sending
we're
the WFP
asking we're
money?
asking people to send money. So the New York Party is always fundraising, and we do coordinated work with the campaigns. The National WFP hosted a donor table last Friday. They will run an IE on behalf of, they will run an IE in the New York City race. We know that. And so we are continuing to fundraise. I always say, if you want a political home that is strategic and that gets things done, you should be investing in the New York Working Families Party. And so we're excited to continue to fundraise to build the infrastructure of the party. One of the things we know is that we know how to run and win elections, and we demonstrated that on Tuesday, and we're going to continue to demonstrate that in November.
Jasmine, talk about now the now in the general. It's. I mean, potentially I don't see it, but it might be former Governor Cuomo, right on an independent line. Mayor Adams, um, Jim Walden, and Curtis Lewa. What's the thinking now? And they're saying that now the business class is going to be coalescing potentially with Mayor Adams now that former Governor Cuomo's path has gotten harder. What are your thoughts on Eric Adams? Is it apples and apples, or how do you take on that? With I know you can only reveal but a certain right? You have to keep it close to the vest. But what's the thinking about Mayor Adams? Because he was initially part of Dream, and then he decided not to run in the primary.
Yeah, I mean, Zoran will appear in the Democratic line and the Working Families Party line in November, right? And so, we still have our ballot line, and he will be on that. Yes, Andrew Cuomo will be on an independent line. Eric Adams will be on an independent line. Jim Walden, Curtis Silwa. At the end of the day, We feel really confident that what we did in the primary we will replicate in the general. We know the billionaire class is scared. And what we saw was their attempt to buy our democracy. But what we're reminded of is that there's actually just more of us than there are of the billionaires. And that people working together, people being committed, people being organized can defeat the billionaires and their candidate. And so we know the billionaire class is searching for a puppet who will do their bidding because they know that's not going to be Zohran Mamdani. But we're not afraid. We've had to fight big dollars before. We will do it again. And that's the reason why we're going to keep up the momentum, the organizing, the door knocking, the base building, the community bridges that we need to do to make sure we have a strong showing in November. We take no voter, no neighborhood for granted. We're going to continue to do the hard work. And what we showed is that a smart campaign that's focused on grassroots organizing and voter contact is the way to win. And again, I think New Yorkers showed a sharp rebuke of the status quo, of the politics of old, of the scandal-ridden politicians. That's both Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo. And I think it's about time they step down and like stop being in disgrace, and that we move forward with our candidate who's ready to run and lead. And so we're going to do everything we can to have a strong showing. We don't take it for granted. But we're also know that New Yorkers are pretty tired of both Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams and want something new and different.
Jasmine, if you were to pick one, what do you think was the ultimate thing that tipped the scale for Zohran? I mean, separate of him just running a great campaign and his hustle and his work ethic and the volunteer base, was it Tish James, her robocalls? I know at the end were there, her endorsement. Was it Ocasio or was it Brad Lander? What do you
Yeah,
think
honestly,
if you were to say at 1 to 3, what was the biggest thing that moved the needle towards the definitive outcome?
I think the biggest thing that made this outcome possible was keeping the left united. If Adrian Adams, if Brad Lander, and others were all throwing shade on Zoran's campaign and running against him actively, it would have capped his potential. But the idea that everyone in the slate said vote for me and rank the slate gave him credibility, gave him freedom to continue to run and grow, and it removed the cap. And so once WFP ranked him number one, it made it possible for AOC to come in and rank him number one, made it possible for the cross endorsement between Brad, made it possible for Tish James to come in. So I'm going to say the WFP strategy around ranking the slate and keeping the left united was the thing that helped make this victory possible.
All right, last two questions. What would you say again, just as a pure tactician and strategy? What would you say was former Governor Cuomo's biggest mistake that led to the outcome? Again, just this is you just saying, hey, I'm from
Yeah.
the
No,
outside looking in.
he took his people for granted. He didn't run a robust campaign. He was hiding from reporters. He was hiding from voters. That's not how you run and win. I think he assumed that his people would come out. He assumed that they would show a good effort. They had like no visibility on election day. I was like out early voting, and I was like, okay, well, maybe they're not doing early voting. They're going to be out on election day. And like, I think I saw them at like 1 or 2 poll sites that I went to. Like, they just weren't out. And I think what happens when you take your base for granted is that they don't show up. And I think that's what happened to Andrew Cuomo.
Now, current mayor Eric Adams, if he is conceivable, there's still time left. There's still an election. If he is a one-term mayor, what would you say if that's the outcome? But again, we never know in this business. If that's the outcome, what do you think was his biggest mistake?
It was the scandals. I mean, I think there's a scandal limit where you're just like, what the hell? For like people in the administration to be arrested and to have to resign in disgrace, and like literally for like every deputy mayors to have to turn around in his administration, all because of like corruption or unethical behavior or things that just like are going too far. I think New Yorkers are just like over it. Like this is just blatant corruption, blatant abuse of your power. And I think there was just a point where like this is absolutely ridiculous, and like we need the city to run, and you're not running the city. You're just outside in the clubs, and we need a mayor who's doing more than that.
Jasmine, thank you, because I want to hold to my commitment to 15, 20 minutes. Anything you want to add that I forgot to ask you that you want to mention?
No, I'll just say the WFP is still here and growing. Encourage folks to continue to plug into the party, become a dues paying member, and support where good work is happening. And, you know, we played a critical role in this campaign and its success, and we look forward to doing more in the future. So thanks for having me.
No, thank you, Jasmine. But there'll be more. Hopefully, this won't be the last time.
Yeah,
But continued success and best of luck to you all. All right.
appreciate it.
Talk
Thank you.
soon. Bye bye. Bye.
Bye.